Okay, our final session before the lunch break is about empathy at scale, how AI is enabling organizations to feel. Our speaker is Yohan Liyanage. He's founder of Sentiva and CEO of Altrium. This is a really interesting talk. He's a Forbes Technology Council member and a frequent speaker on technology, AI, and entrepreneurship. He measures success not only in revenue, but also in the people and communities he's helped change for good. Please welcome Yohan.
Ayubowan. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Yohan Liyanage. I'm the CEO and founder of Sentiva. And today, I'm here to talk about something called empathy at scale. So let me start off with a quick question to you all. When was the last time you felt truly heard at work? I mean, truly heard. These are rare moments in our workplaces today, when you feel that they get me, they see me, they understand me. These moments are extremely rare today at workplaces because of the way how we work and interact with each other. You know, some time ago, when we were working at our workplaces, we used to engage a lot more with humans. We would talk to each other, we would meet each other at the water cooler and then have a conversation about what's going on in our lives. We had those little conversations that helped us to connect with each other. But then technology advanced, and we started to interact more with machines. And even those little human interactions that we had, today we do that through a screen. Oftentimes, we pull out our phone, we open up Slack, we send a message to one of our colleagues rather than talking to them and engaging with them. And we type messages, we use emojis to react. The conversation is still happening, but we don't see eye to eye, and we don't connect with each other. Now, this creates a problem. This creates a situation where we feel disconnected, because when the machines mediate the conversation between humans, a lot of subtle cues and signals that we share with each other is lost. And we feel unhappy, and that disconnection leads to a problem called disengagement. Now, we talk about disengagement a lot. And in fact, Gallup says disengagement is costing the global economy $9.6 trillion every year. Not a small sum. $9.6 trillion. When you combine the GDP of Germany and Japan together, still it's not even $9.6 trillion. So what do we do about it? Well, the employers, they would go with perks. Why don't we throw some perks at our employees so that they will feel happy? Let's give them more remote work. Let's give them more extra time off. Let's throw fancy events so that people will connect. Is it working? Probably not. Because if you go and talk to employees, they would say, awesome, I'm working at a workplace where I get a lot of time off. I'm not at work as much. We have fancy events. I really enjoy it. But I still feel less connected. Why is this happening? Because perks are treating the symptom, not the cause. We don't feel disconnected because we did not have perks. We feel disconnected because we are not engaging with each other anymore. So what can we do about it? Should we go back to the way it was? That is not an option. But again, technology can help to address this issue. So what's missing here is a little thing called empathy. Empathy is the feeling that you get when you understand another person, when you feel what they feel. But it's very difficult to have empathy when you are engaging through a machine. But how can we fix this in this age of AI? So our organizations today are data-rich but empathy-poor, so we have a mission to fix this. The $9 trillion question that we have in front of us is, how do we make empathy something that organizations can practice at scale? So when we think about AI, we always think in terms of speed. Can we do things faster? We think about accuracy. Can we do things better with more correctness? And can we automate things that we do so that machines can do it for us? But what if empathy is something that AI can help with. So let me take an analogy here. Think about the human body. We all have a brain. In the context of an organization, the brain is like the leadership and strategy. This is where the decision-making happens. And then we have our muscles. We do things with our muscles, and in an organization, this is where the execution and operations happen. We have mastered how to use AI to improve these areas, to make better decisions, to automate and do things faster. But we are missing something. There is another very important system in the human body called the central nervous system. It's a central nervous system that would detect all the pains that we feel in our muscles and carry those signals to the brain so that the brain can make a better decision. So what if we can use AI to address this gap? To do that, there are 3 simple steps: sense, interpret, and adapt. Sense means sensing the signals that we have in the workplace around us, what's going on around us, because this is where the biggest damage is done through technology, because we are not getting those signals. If I talk to one of you face to face, I would understand how you would feel. If I talk to you over chat, I would not know that. So we need better ways to capture these signals. That's the sensing part. Next comes interpreting. You might have some random signals, but signals alone doesn't tell you a story. You have to put in the context and try to see what does it mean in this specific situation. Then you have insights coming out of those signals. And once you have insights, then it's up to us to adapt those insights with action to change the way we work, to change the way we respond to something, or maybe even change our workflows. Now, organizations today practice it in some scale, even when they don't know that they're doing it. But with AI, things change quite a bit. Because we can now sense at scale. If you try to sense with a human, you can do it with maybe 1 or 2. But with AI, you can sense thousands of signals at the same time and then interpret that in context. Context that we can't even remember as humans is available to AI. And if you pass this information to AI with that context, suddenly you get better insights. And these insights then can be adapted so that we can change our workflows. And the beauty here is we can now do this at scale. Me alone can maybe talk to 10 people, but if we have a system in place that can do all this, we can scale it up to thousands, 10,000, even 100,000 just as easily. So sense, interpret, adapt, or in short, SIA. Not the artist, but SIA has a song called Elastic Heart, and which is all about scaling empathy. Empathy is hard, and we want elastic hearts for our organizations. So let's see SIA in action. Let's talk about employee engagement. How do we do that? The first piece is sensing. How do we sense how the people feel in our organizations? It can be something very simple like a daily mood check-in. Asking a question, how do you feel today, with 3 responses, 3 emojis. People love emojis. Can have a happy face, a straight face, and a sad face, and capture how people feel. Now, that alone doesn't mean much. And if you get a prompt like this every day, you would tap on something. And I had an interesting conversation the other day when I was discussing this with someone. People tend to lie as well because they are worried that their managers, if you keep pressing the sad icon, what would the managers think? So this alone doesn't work, but this is valuable information because some people will do that, some others will be truthful, but if we build trust with them, more people will be truthful about how they really feel. Because if you know that this is not being used to make decisions on your performance, people would be more open about it. Next up, instant messages and email analytics. The speed at which I respond to a message I get on Slack tells a lot about how I'm feeling. If I'm active and focused, I would respond faster. But if I'm unhappy or if I'm not feeling that great, it might take a little longer. But that alone, again, doesn't mean much, but when you put all of this information together, suddenly a story emerges. Now, there's another question about this. So does this mean that AI is being a spy on us? So you don't need to know what message is being sent, but how you send and how fast you respond, those little signals is what we're interested in, not exactly what you're communicating with each other. Then finally, we have meeting analytics. So say, for example, you're at a meeting, and some person who's usually talking in that specific meeting is not talking anymore. That alone, again, is a sign. It might tell a deeper story if you connect all this information together. Then you have to interpret. You have to look at all the signals and see whether there are patterns. Small shifts that you see in those signals can be a cue towards a problem of disengagement in the organization. And also, AI can help to separate out noise. When you are looking at 1,000 signals coming in at you, there's a lot of noise as well. You might have one bad day because you're having a headache. That doesn't mean that you are disengaged. But if you look at all this data over a long period of time, those patterns are much more important than individual ones. Finally, you connect all this information, you connect the dots in context to find the real story behind why disengagement is happening. And once you have that information, you have to adapt. AI can nudge the leaders and HR to go and have a human conversation, because AI is not at a level where it can really go and have an empathetic conversation right now. But it can nudge a human to go and have the conversation. Imagine you are an HR professional, and you have a workforce of 1,000. You cannot go and have one-on-ones with everyone. But if you can get to know that this is the person that you should go and talk to right now, because he or she is going through a tough time, you can be a much more empathetic HR leader with the help of technology. Next comes personalized feedback. This is one of my favorites. Giving feedback to the individual about their engagement, because oftentimes when we are disconnected, when we are disengaged, we don't even know that. It takes some time for us to realize what we are going through. And with this personalized feedback coming to me, I would know about how I'm doing, and I would feel more encouraged to engage more. And finally, we had to evolve and monitor, change workplace practices, and see how those changes are creating new signals that we need to tap into and understand how the organization functions. So let's get a little technical. This is World Summit AI. So this is the architectural blueprint of one way of implementing this framework. So we have 6 layers, and each one of these layers map into sense, interpret, and adapt. So we have the data sources, processing, semantics, decision, and action layer. Under each one of these layers, there are certain things that you can use AI as it stands today to get the job done. So these are some of those things that you can do right now. I'll go one by one. So the first one is a mood check-in. This is the message I said earlier about, how do you feel today? It can be a simple Slack bot interaction where you get that message with emojis. You can look at interaction in Slack messages to find out what's going on. Email analytics can be an Outlook plugin. And you can have a meeting observer, which would join a meeting passively and observe the interactions and generate a report behind the scenes, and then give you feedback personally about how you are engaging, rather than judging you. And it can be something similar to the transcription bots that you see out there today, but rather than transcribing everything, it's looking at interaction cues. The processing layer, you have time series analysis to look at data over a long period of time to detect trends, and you can use embeddings to convert all the text information that you have into something that machines can understand. And change point detection, this is super important because you need to understand exactly when you have trends, the change happens. And finally, if you want to do voice AI, you would have automated speech recognition, voice actor detection. There are a lot of tools out there that you can use for this, like DeepGram Noah, Whisper, Assembly AI. That's the processing layer. Semantics is where we bring in the context. You can do retrieval augmented generation with things like Pinecone, and clustering of data, network metrics, and contextual grounding, meaning you ground all the information that you have with policies and procedures of the organization, knowledge about the organization culture, and also previous interactions that you had with AI, so that we have the context about what you are going through. And then we have the decision layer. This is where the fancy things like the LLMs come in. You can use LangChain, LangGraph, semantic kernel, agentic AI stuff in here. And you might need to develop specialized agents and models sometimes if you want to do anomaly detection in certain situations. And you would need classifiers in certain cases. And also, you have to always make sure that you have confidence thresholds, because AI is not at a level where it can generate truly accurate results. So confidence that AI has about its own decisions is something extremely important too. Finally, the easy part, the action layer, can be a Slackbot nudge, the personalized feedback I talked about earlier, dashboards for HR, and also policy adaptation. So if you have policies, AI can revise those policies for you so that you have revised versions that you can push out with your approval. But one important thing here is, in most of these cases, you need to have human in the loop so that you approve and move forward with awareness. Now, if you do all this, you can address most of the challenges you have with disengagement. Now, this is a quick sneak peek into a POC that we did. We did this pilot in our own organization. We built a small bot that would join our Google Meet meetings and would observe how people engage. And this is the feedback that we shared with one of the associates after observing for 1 week. So we said, you attended 6 meetings, 22% of the time you were talking, and you had 11 comments that acknowledged or built on teammates' team input. And finally, we end it with a positive remark about how they can do better. So guess what? What we found out is that people feel like they are appreciated more, they want to engage more when they know how they're doing. Otherwise, we don't even know how we are doing at a given point of time. So this is what happens when engineering meets empathy. You get tangible results out of that. So if you have a workplace like that, where you are able to understand how people feel, what you have is something that we like to call a sentient workplace. A workplace that learns from feedback, performance, and data across the life cycle, adapts with personalized experience for each and every employee, and having nudges and networks of people connecting. And it connects employees and managers, but we don't stop there. Connect the alumni as well, your ex-employees. They are a valuable source of information and positive branding opportunities for you. They carry the messages, they are your brand ambassadors, and also applicants who are applying at your organization. They get the first experience about your organization through interviews, and in all of these processes, you can leverage AI to create a sentient workplace. So just imagine this. Imagine a workplace where every employee feels heard, where disengagement is sensed even before we do as humans, and AI doesn't replace human conversation, it just reminds us to have one. That is a sentient workplace. So what I believe is that the greatest gift that AI can give us is not speed or efficiency. It's about making us more aware of the human inside us, to have human conversations and engage with each other more. Thank you all, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much, Yohan. Questions for Yohan, please, from the floor. We've one over here. If we can get a microphone to this gentleman, please. One here. Another question by the pillar. We'll start here. Go ahead.
Hi, thanks so much for your talk. Ruben Kranendonk from the University of Zurich. A colleague of mine actually published research together with the University of Bern where they showed that AI can actually outperform humans in empathy, 81% against 56%. But when the participants knew the answer came from an AI, that was significantly lower. I'm sure this number will increase when we learn and accept and understand this technology better. But unfortunately, this technology also knows to trigger humans, for instance, with addictive behavior. We all know how social media works. So aren't you fearful that these tools could perhaps, instead of motivating and stimulating the workplace, make people almost addicted to working?
That's a great question and a tough one. But I guess all of these things are tools. And if you look at AI, there are different segments of AI. And if you take a LLM, for example, to me, it's nothing but a very intelligent autocomplete engine. It just looks at all the data that it has, and it tries to predict the next word and the next word after that one, right? So it may look like empathy to us when AI communicates with us in a way that makes us feel good about the other person understanding, but that doesn't necessarily mean that AI truly has real empathy like we do. So in that case, that's why when the people hear that it came from AI, suddenly the numbers drop because they don't feel that connection, because they don't trust AI, right? But end of the day, all of these things are tools, and tools are imperfect. And it's up to us to make sure that we use those in the right way. And that's where I think the common things like guardrails and how we implement these things matters a lot more. About the ethical adoption of AI is something that's super important. So I guess the answer to that question would be it's up to us to decide how we use it. Of course, with anything, there's a danger to it, there's a risk to it. If you decide to drive on the road, you can get into an accident, but we still drive. So the same way, it's up to us to decide how to use AI, and only time will tell where we will go.
Just raise your hands in the audience. We'll come to that question in 1 second. Raise your hand in the audience if you feel like you work for someone who's very empathetic. You have a very empathetic leader. All right, that's like 3 people. Okay, very quickly, this question at the back. I'm being given out to. Yes, go ahead.
Hello, thank you. Quick question on how do you think about empathy for employees, and how do you measure the impact of it? Because from the example that we just showed, actually, personally, I felt anxiety.
Right.
I'm being judged, there's stats, and it means there's an assumption that those stats means I'm engaged and I'm happy. Do you have some like evidence about actual effectiveness of that and how people understand that and use it?
Quickly, Yohan,
Right.
please, if you don't
Sure.
mind. Yeah.
So empathy is a feeling, and feelings can't be measured and quantified in a certain way. You can like run a survey and find things out. If you ask about how much you love your children, you can't quantify that. Empathy is something like that. But the more important thing in that question I felt is the fact that the trust issue. If AI is judging and observing everything that I'm doing, I don't feel comfortable with it either. But then again, if that is information that's only shared with me, and it's for me to grow personally, and if I have trust in the system, I would want to use it more. And one thing that we actually advocate is not to use these metrics as performance criteria. And we are working on a platform that we are building just for this use case, where we don't expose the specific numbers and the data to the supervisors, because that's not important. The goal here is to say that your team is more disengaged than what it was before. It's a comparative measure, and we don't really share the same information with the managers or others. But then again, it boils down to trust. If an employee doesn't trust the system, they would not want to do that.
Yeah.
But the goal of AI is not here to track everyone and to spy on everything that we do. But the goal here is to kind of create an environment where we get personalized feedback that we can improve on our own, while giving signals to HR and other leadership that, hey, this entire team, this division that you have in marketing suddenly shows a dip in their engagement. Something is up. We don't judge why it happens. We just want someone to go and have a human conversation and find out why. Because we don't believe AI can really go to the level of understanding the human emotions just yet.
Yeah, if it's a $9 trillion problem in the United States, and we ask a room of people, and 3 people who are probably beside their managers raise their hand when they're asked about empathetic leadership, then we have a problem. Ladies and gentlemen, Yohan.
Thank you.
Thank you.